Good morning. Welcome to the Exploring Graphs and Correlations. I just want to take a few minutes to kind of explain what those of you guys working from home need to do. So the first thing you're going to need to do with this assignment is open the Exploring Correlations is a Google Doc. So we will need that. So I'm just going to drag that down. Well, I'll hopefully drag this down off to the side. And also going to want to take a look at this Google slide correlations. So we'll leave that up here. So let's see here. Let's see if I can get this half screen. All right. So first thing we want to do here is once we open up this copy of your file is make sure we change that to your last name, Croft Exploring Correlations. And then we want to take a look at these slides. So let's see if we can present this, make that a little bit more full screen for the time being, just to talk about what a correlation is. So correlation is simply a relationship or a connection between two things. Now this is going to kind of fall into a lot of categories where it could be positive, negative, or no correlation. Now what that means is a positive correlation would be like as your x-axis goes and gets bigger, so would your y-axis. So this is things like, the taller I am, the more I probably weigh. That's pretty common amongst a lot of things. Maybe it's something like the more hours I work, the more money I'm going to get paid, which all should kind of make sense. Same thing with negative correlation. Might be something if you're trying to do like weight loss. Okay, so if I weigh a lot up here on the y-axis, and maybe our x-axis is something like, how much time I spend in the gym. Well, the more time I work, the more weight loss is going to occur. So we're kind of looking at those things, something along those lines. The other thing we want to look at here is also these R values. This is just going to be a thing called the correlation coefficient. But basically what we need to know about that is the closer to 1 it is, the more exact it's going to be. So you can see all of our points are on the line. We drop to an R value of 0.8. Now we start seeing some things come off of that line. And then if we have a 0.3, that's going to tell us a bunch about, it's scattered all over the place. And if we get to 0, there is nothing we can tell about it. Same thing applies for negatives. Negative is just going to imply that it's going down. So that would end up being our negative correlations. And again, the closer to 1 we get, so 0.8 would get everything closer to the line. And if we get everything at a 1, that's basically saying exactly there. All right, so what we need to take a look at here is a few slides. So the first one we're looking at is, does studying increase your grade? All right, so sounds about right. If we're looking at math grade on the y-axis, study time on our x-axis, what we're going to do with this is going to say, like, is there some type of correlation with this? Well, there probably is, right? We're going to be looking at this and saying, yeah, the more time I study, the better grade I should get, which makes sense. But what we're going to be doing with this assignment is we are going to take a look. So let's see if we can get back to this slide. Just so we can take a look at where we're looking. We're going to take time to put like our y-axis up here on the top and our x-axis down here below. So we got grades and study time. But let's specifically focus on our grade. What are the low scores? So if we're looking at all these plots here, it looks like our lowest score was about a 50. If we're going to look at our highest score, that looks like it's probably about we'll be generous and call that a 99. And then we're going to look at our study time. Well, what was our lowest amount of study time? Looks like that was maybe a half hour. So we could say 0.5 hours. And what was our highest? Looks like it might be about 6.5, so 6.5 hours. So what we're going to be looking at here is basically trying to find your lows and highs of your graphs. what this is doing for us is this is going to tie into what we're leading into, especially with solving and looking for our domain and range. Stuff we're taking pre-tests on and working with that. If we want to put percents in here, we can put that in as well. So that one makes sense. So does this correlation, do you think there is a correlation between your grades and your study time? Yes. We don't have to go too much more than that, but just to kind of use some common sense on a few of these. So if we look at our next one, so it looks like we might have to maybe jump out of this. And we're going to look at a couple different things here. So now we're looking at correlation between two things. This one here is trying to say that the per capita cheese consumption, so how much cheese we're consuming, is going to correlate with the number of people who died by becoming tangled in their bed sheets. Now our math, now there's a lot of stuff going in here, but this is basically trying to tell us a 0.94. Okay, this is, you know, also kind of converted to a percent. But there is basically saying that there is a 94% correlation between the fact that you consuming cheese and dying by getting tangled in your bed sheets. They're saying that there's a 94% connection between that. Now again, we got to use our common sense and say, does that really make sense? Well, in this case, probably not. Unless, you know, you're eating so much cheese that you can't get out of bed, and that's, you know, causing in some fatal deaths. This correlation is probably going to give us some information that it looks like both of these are just kind of growing at the same time. You're looking at two separate things here, right? And this is what you need to pay attention to. We're talking about our cheese consumed over here on the left, anything in red, and it looks like we're looking at our black being anything of people that are dying due to our bed sheet tangling. So when we kind of go back to our graph, we need to start looking at our red, which actually has our x-axis up top, because they are trying to fit two different things on here. And then you're looking at, for your bed sheet tangles, we got to look for the black over here. So they actually put your y-axis on the right. But we want to kind of look at our highs and lows. So if we're kind of looking at these values, looks like we're starting off, if we do the bed sheet tangles, let's see if we can kind of jump back in here to fill out our chart. See if I can make this any bigger to actually be able to see these numbers beside. Oh, this is great. So anyway, if we go back to our cheese consumptions, what was our lowest value on cheese? So cheese was our red values over here to the left, and I think we said that was probably about 29. I'll have to pull that back up here in a section. And if we're following that red cheese consumption, it looks like it gets up here to, well, what is that? Red 2000, that looks like to be about 33 pounds at the highest. So if we go back in here, we're going from 29 to about 33 in our cheese consumptions. Now our x-axis here, which was years, so we do want to make sure we replace that based on those. So that looked like we were going from about year 2000 to 2009. And that looks like it's doing, if you look at the red and black here, that looks like it's going to stay the same for both of these. Because remember, we are trying to compare the two things over time. So we went from 2000 at the lowest and 2009 at the highest. We're also looking at our death in bed sheets with the same. The only thing we need to go back into our graph for is to see how much deaths by bed sheets we had. So the death by bed sheets here is in black. So make sure we are matching that up over here with our deaths. So it looks like our lowest one here was about maybe about 300 deaths. And it looks like our highest value tracing up through would be about 800. So when we go back in here, we are comparing our lows, 300 deaths. So So let's make sure we go back and do them. 800 deaths. And also over here we were talking about these as 29 pounds of consumption, 33 pounds of consumption. So if we take a second to think about all of that, does that correlation make sense that cheese and death should be a correlation? Probably not. So even though that someone took the time to math and decided to try to do some calculations, and when we looked at that table, even though they're trying to tell us, yeah, they're 94%, that's just by math terms. It doesn't always necessarily work out that is the 100% reason. But yeah, we can look at both of these trends of going up over time, but doesn't always tell us that. So what you're going to do at this point is we're going to get through 10 of these, so there's probably like 2 extra, but then we can start looking at other data. So this one here is comparing the words, the letters in winning words of your Scripps National Spelling Bee correlates with the number of people killed by venomous spiders. So again, take a minute here to go back through, change up those headings to now we're talking about spelling bee letters and deaths by venomous spiders. And we're going to be again looking at our X and Y axis, so our X is years. The biggest thing here is pay attention to, you see here in black, that's going to all be stuff that would be your X axis, and the Y axis would be over here to the right. And then if we look at your red, well, that's going to have your X axis actually up above and your Y axis over here to the left. So what we can do with that is finish up, just finish up 10 of these slides. Just make sure we kind of go back in here and change that Y-axis. So we got letters in spelling bee, and we have X-axis again would be years, and then over here we would have venomous spiders, spider deaths, and again years. And we're just going to kind of take our time to analyze these graphs and basically kind of give us a little insight into domain and range, because what we're going to find out with domain and range is domain is going to be your x-axis numbers and your range would be your y values. But that stuff we will continue to work through without this chapter. This is just kind of a little fun, weird kind of way of looking at some things that people have found connected over time. So good luck. Make sure once you finish that assignment, we do come back into Canvas and submit those assignments. All right, good luck. Have a great day.